Hey y'all, on today's episode of Impacting Recovery Uncensored, we have Ryan and Tanner. They are our recovery coaches in Phase 2 at Impact Recovery and also Impact alumni. They share the importance of aftercare and their personal recovery stories. So tune in. Welcome to Impacting Recovery Uncensored. I'm your host, Sarah Pritchard. This is a podcast where we dive deep into the real, uncensored truths about addiction, recovery, and everything in between. No judgment, no sugarcoating, just honest conversations that can help lift up the solution. So let's get started. Today, I'm very excited. We have our friends Tanner and Ryan. They are our recovery coaches and oversee Phase 2 at Impact Recovery Center and also Impact alumni. How's it going?
Hey, Sarah. Thank you for having us. Excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. How you feeling?
Good.
Good.
Happy to be here. Thanks for asking us to be on.
Yeah. No, I'm super excited. Today, we are going to be talking a lot, hopefully, about aftercare, the importance of aftercare, what it is, y'all's experience, and just dive into that a little bit. I think there are a lot of people out there that don't even know what that means. I know when I personally was getting introduced to the, treatment world, recovery world, I didn't even know what aftercare was. I didn't know what the difference between things were. I didn't understand it at all. So I don't think I am alone in that. So that's why I think this is going to be a great episode for listeners. Okay, so Ryan, I'll start with you. How did you get connected to Impact in the first place?
So I had seen my brother, actually, who's in recovery, get well about 3 years before I did. And he had started reaching out to me saying, man, you need to go to treatment. You need to get some help. And I knew I needed to do something. My alcoholic life, my drug addicted life had become really unmanageable. It was becoming very clear to me that, the way I was living life wasn't going to cut it anymore.
Yeah.
It was becoming impossible for me to live.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this idea okay, I need to get some help, but I'm not ready yet. And I think that's a lot of people's stories. I know I need to do something different, but I'm not quite there yet.
Right.
And so I kind of give my brother this idea yeah, I'm going to go. And he started doing some legwork for me, trying to call some people, and I'd always have an excuse as to why, this place isn't going to work. And one day I was driving down the road, nothing crazy happened. Nothing absurd happened. I suffered no major consequences, but I just got beaten down by life.
Right.
Life became impossible.
Yeah.
I couldn't do the most mundane of tasks.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do my own laundry. I couldn't do the dishes. I couldn't do anything of the most simplest tasks.
Right.
And so I picked up the phone and I called Impact. I just Googled Impact or addiction treatment centers in Alabama, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And Impact just happened to pop up. It was a God moment. Have no clue why Impact popped up other than to say it was a God moment.
Yeah.
And Adams Pritchard picks up the phone, and he was saying things I'd never heard before.
Yeah.
Man, we're going to get you connected and plugged up and living life in a way you've never seen. And I was like, man, this is awesome. He asked me to type up an email, so I typed it up, and before you know it, I'm detoxing. And when I come down the driveway at Impact, I was like, man, this is where I'm supposed to be. I see the barn, and it's a sunset or a sunrise. It was in the morning, and I just felt like I was at home. I really did. That's really my experience. I felt like, man, I belong here.
That's amazing because I think a lot of people, when they get to treatment or recovery program or something, they're like, this is the last place I need to be. So
exactly.
That's cool that you had that experience.
Yeah. I did. And, I remember just thinking being so scared of going back to my old life. I was willing to do whatever I needed to do to avoid having that experience of returning to the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
I was so done living the life the way I had been living it. I wanted a new experience in life. I had completely forgotten how to live life. And I was a college graduate, a college basketball player. I had done some things successfully in my life. But by the time I arrived at Impact's doorstep, I had forgotten how to do those things.
Yeah.
And I needed someone to show me how to do it.
Right. Yeah. That's amazing. I didn't know that whole story. I didn't know your brother was sober too. So
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Tanner, what about you? What got you connected to Impact?
Yeah. So, just I had been to numerous treatment centers. I had been in addiction for about 11 years. Had been in and out of the doors of different treatment facilities. Been given opportunity after opportunity to get well. Right. Obviously, I wasn't open to it at that time. And a lot like Ryan said, I had just come to a place in my life to where, everything I was just hopeless.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know which way to turn. And I wasn't aware that there was a solution out there,
What was your experience like before, like, knowing there was a solution? Like for me, for example, I just thought like life was going to be boring and like meetings and just like no appeal whatsoever.
I had already come to the realization. I can remember sitting at my parents' house one day and coming to the realization that this is what my life's going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is what my life's going to look like from here on out. And I can remember getting upset and having a hard time with it, but then just coming to some acceptance around it.
Yeah.
Right. Because I had proven to myself time and time and time again that nothing was going to change.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a tough place to be.
Yeah.
Coming to accept that my life is just going to look like this, and how can I make the best out of my life, continuing to do the things that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right. Actually, a lot of the years I spent, either the court system was putting me somewhere, or my family was putting me somewhere, or a job was putting me somewhere. And, I could say a lot of things about they wouldn't have, it wasn't the right place, and it might not have been right. But I can sit here and tell you right now that I don't remember one thing that was ever said at any of them treatment centers.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't ready to receive any kind of information.
Yeah.
I wasn't in a place to, no matter what they was telling me.
Yes.
But I had a lot of judgments around
Right.
all the treatment centers,
And a lot of opinions, I'm sure, and how they could do it differently.
and a lot of opinions
Yeah.
around it. So this very last time, I had actually everybody in my life, I had finally come to a place, trying to, being a drug addict or an alcoholic and trying to operate in a normal life, it's just the most miserable, hardest thing to ever try to accomplish.
Yeah.
And I had finally come to a place to where my very last job, I was working in Huntsville at that time. My very last job was, I knew they was fixing to let me go, and I can remember contemplating, like, I'm either going to try to get well and try to live a normal life, a recovered life, or I'm just going to continue to use drugs,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like I said before, like, I had proved to myself, I didn't have no evidence to show me that I could pull off not using.
Right.
So I just threw my hands up, like, you know what? If I'm going to use drugs, I'm going to do it for real.
Yeah.
And I didn't. That's what I did for the next 3 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that ended up landing me in jail bunches of times. Like, I stayed in jail all the time. And this very last time before I made it to Impact, I was actually looking at sentence, looking at going to doing some prison time, and my mother, or actually my sister, she had reached out on Facebook. She had reached out and said, hey, my brother, he's been here, and here. Does anybody have any ideas on something else to try? And there was actually a resident of an Impact at that time, and his girlfriend I went to high school with.
That's crazy.
And,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And she reached out to my little sister and was like, hey, we know this place. Like, my boyfriend's going here, and he's doing really well. Won't you try this? And, Mom, my parents actually, when I talked to her, when I was in jail, I talked to her, and she actually gave me that option, and I refused it at first. I said, I'm not doing that.
Isn't that crazy?
I'm not.
Like, it's like an addict or an alcoholic. It's like jail or you can get better.
Right.
And it's like, no, I'm jail.
I like where I'm at.
Right.
Yeah, it is. But this is the first time that I could actually hear something different in her, that I'm done.
Yeah.
I can remember her telling me, you've got a sister, and you're not going to kill me. You're not going to cause my life to end early.
Yeah.
Like I've got to draw a line here, and I accepted to give it another try. Didn't have a clue where I was going. She didn't tell me where I was going. Come to find out that, Adams had reached out to the judge. He had done a lot of, talking to the judge to try to convince him to give me another try. And he was actually able to pull that off, like he pulls off a lot of stuff. And one day, they come and called my name, and they was waiting on me up front, and Impact come and got me, and took me to the barn,
And the rest was history.
The rest was history.
Yeah.
I knew something was different on the way up there because they called back, and there was actually a few guys, John Fleming, Chad Nash, they was actually there at the time, and I could just tell the way they was talking, asking about me, how am I doing, just the questions they was asking about, this about Tanner, who you went and picked up, how's he doing, what does he want for it was just a different experience.
Yeah.
It was a different experience than I had ever had or ever saw at any treatment center, and my very first week there, I think we was going to a meeting, and we had to leave the meeting early. I didn't know what was going on. We had to leave the meeting early. We went down and down to, I think it was a bar somewhere, and we picked up one of the guys that had relapsed that was in sober living, and took him back to the barn. And I'm like, what is going on? What is going on here?
Yeah.
Like, these people genuinely are trying to help get well. Like, I've never saw this anywhere. Like, you do something like that at another treatment center, you're gone. Mm-hmm. You're gone. No questions asked. Like, we're not trying to talk to you about what happened. We're not trying to work through it to find out, look at where we went wrong. It's just go home.
Yeah.
And that just, them two things right there in the very beginning was just a big shift in me around trust, and that's got to be there in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that kind of rolls into my next question about a little bit about, one, just like what a recovery coach mentor looks like. We have the mentor specialist in phase 1, and then now you guys are coaches over at phase 2. And, Ryan, your experience in phase 1, when you had, was it Colby or Jacob?
I had Jacob.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, perfect for me.
Yes. So, and I'm glad Tanner touched on it. The trust piece, was that a big piece for you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Jacob is really good at just telling you the truth.
Yeah.
And he also has this second gear where he has a softer spot. He won't let you know that, but he can do a really good job of telling you the truth, but also showing you why.
Yeah. Right.
And explaining to you why he's telling you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so important in harboring and developing that relationship, because if I don't trust you, I'm not going to listen to you.
Right.
Especially as a drug addict who has burned so many relationships and burned so many bridges in my life. I have to have trust with you in order to be able to do what you ask me to do.
Yeah.
If I don't see it working in you, I'm not going to do it. And if I don't believe that you're doing it, why would I do it?
Right.
And so I try to take that with me when I'm building these relationships with guys in phase 2. It's really cool to see a light bulb click when you're having a conversation with them, and they're like, "Oh, that's why you asked me to do that."
Yeah.
I had a conversation with a guy just last week, and I could see that light bulb click in him. And he actually got to experience that peace from all the things that we ask him to do, finally that he had that moment.
Yes.
And he experienced peace where it's like, it doesn't matter where I go or what I do, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
And it's from all of the work that we do at phase 1 and at phase 2 that those moments they make it worth it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And Tanner, I'll go back to you as far as kind of your role, and Ryan, you can jump into, but what does that look like? What does y'all's roles look like at Impact for phase 2?
So these guys are at the barn. They're at the barn for 35 days, 35 to 42 days. And, we're up there twice a week. We're up there on Mondays and Thursdays. So, while they're at the barn, we get a chance to spend time with them and get to know them before they transition over to phase 2.
Yeah.
So we already have a chance to kind of start building that relationship with them, get to know them, talk to their mentors, Jacob or Colby, kind of get some insight around what's going on, what some of the behaviors and stuff looks like. That way we've got, we're ready for them to come over. And, there's, but they've already had a fifth step by the time they come over there. A lot of times I get to do the fifth step with them, right? And that's a big deal. That's a big deal in a man's life. Some of the stuff that's shared in the fifth step, right?
Yeah.
And and that just transitions right over into phase 2.
Yeah.
Right. That the trust and seeing what we need to work on. I was talking to actually Jacob yesterday, and these guys they're not immature in all areas of their life, right? Like some of them, their finances, they're around work, they're really well rounded around that. But there's a lot of other areas of their life that they are immature in,
Mm-hmm.
and that needs growth, and finding what that is, working on that, looking at that, working on that, and helping them grow up in that area, right?
Yeah.
And build confidence. That's really big.
Yeah.
That's really big. Like, their next step over, when it comes to phase 2 is going and cleaning up some of this stuff, making some of these amends,
Right.
and starting to clean up the past, right? There's a lot of fear involved with that, a lot of shame, that's still involved with that. And, sometimes, there's some that's just willing to go right out there and just knock it out. And then there's others that needs a little shove,
Yes.
right? To get that. But once they get out there and experience the peace that comes with that, then the willingness starts to build, and there normally doesn't have to be any more shove, right?
Right.
And just, and then they have a place after they've made these amends, they can come back and we can kind of go through what that looked like, what lessons needed to be learned, and what lessons need to be learned in that, how we can approach the next one a little bit better.
Yeah.
That's a
what
really
about
good
you?
point. Yeah. So I think that our goals as recovery coaches at phase 2 is to harbor an environment and try to show these guys how to experience permanent sobriety, right? That's the goal.
Yeah.
And however we get there is inconsequential, right? Whether they do recovery how we do it doesn't matter. It's inconsequential. It doesn't matter as long as they are able to experience permanent sobriety and freedom comes along with it. And so what we do is we just coach them up on when they make a mistake, how do we correct it and ensure that it doesn't happen again.
Right.
Right. And so I think that's the cool part about what we do is that there's no guideline, there's no script, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get to do it however we think is the best way to do it based on our own experience, what worked for us, what didn't work for us, how people taught us,
Right.
and how we learned from it, how we didn't learn from it. And so our life experience is our best guide.
Yeah.
What works for us may or may not work for someone else, right? And so the goal is permanent sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get you there?
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a very unique approach in phase 2, our aftercare, versus maybe some other places that are not necessarily as immersive as we are, which is fine, but that's just not, who we are. But y'all do a great job on getting them. Obviously the amends is huge. And it's really cool that they get to start experiencing cleaning up their past, and then they can come back to y'all and like process that essentially. And then we have our therapist over there too that can help with that. But and then, give them that sense of community and still kind of be in the bubble of like learning how to do life.
Yeah.
Because for me, for a long time, I thought it was like, okay, these steps, check it off the list and I'm done. I graduate.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's a way of life. It's a whole new way of living. And just like you mentioned, Tanner, like these are ways that they've never experienced that they may need to grow up in some areas. And I would love for y'all to talk about kind of how they get engaged in the community as well, like the local community, not just Impact, but like, that everybody goes to meetings together and y'all do outings or the gym or, what does that look like? And why is that important, I guess?
So yeah, I mean, ways that we get involved in the community. I have community service set up for them every week. Right on Fridays, we go to the community kitchen over either in the Woodlawn or South Side section, and that's really good for them.
Yeah,
I mean, it really is. I mean, most of the clients, most of the guys that come through Impact, right, is they've never experienced that side. They've never experienced that part of addiction.
right.
And for them to see that and for them to see continuing to live the way you live, like in their mind, they don't think that it can ever look that way.
Yeah.
They don't. When being homeless and go into a food bank or go into the community kitchen to get your lunch and stuff every day, that is so much a possibility.
Oh, yeah.
That is very easily what their life could look like if they continue down the road they're on. So that's just it's very good for them to go and be a part of that. We go and be a part of that once a week. I'm big on, I really believe in, the physical piece of this, the exercise. We have them a gym membership set up at Planet Fitness.
Yeah.
So when we have a gym time every day. It's an hour, anywhere from 3:30 to 5 o'clock, and and you're required to go. Right, regardless.
Yeah.
Period. Like you go and you're going to be a part. You're going to be a part of whether you work out or not. You're going to go be at the gym, and there's different things to do there, right? But we find even the guys that's resistant to that in the beginning, that goes and starts to be intentional and put a little effort into it, really gets a lot from it.
Yeah.
The exercise, the physical piece of this, the working on, getting healthy again.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think that's important too because it is such a, it helps your mind so much, the exercise and everything like that.
Sarah, if I may, just to
ahead.
follow up on that, how we're getting involved in the community. You mentioned, meetings. I think that's such an important component of what we do at Phase 2. We recently made a change at Phase 2 in the evening portion of the programming. We essentially let the guys have control over what meetings they go to. And the reason behind that change is we wanted them to feel like they are a part of the Birmingham recovery community. Mm-hmm. And we wanted them to start to get involved in these meetings, show up early, stay late, make connections, become a part of the fellowship.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that was a part that was maybe missing for me early on. I got a sponsor. My sponsor knows everything there is to know about me. That is so crucial, right? And that's one thing we want these guys to really take hold of is find a sponsor, find your guy, and make sure he knows everything there is to know about you. Find someone that you trust, that you can tell everything to. That brutal honesty is such a key component of that permanent sobriety that we talked about, that you can just tell everything to.
Yeah.
And you won't find that person if you don't get plugged up with him early. And going to these meetings and staying late, coming early.
Right.
I think that's such a key component.
Yeah, you can't just sit in the back and then dip out,
you know. Listening, showing up and just hearing what people have to say and leaving, that wouldn't work for me.
Right.
I need to participate in them.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also what's really neat is that obviously is like the most important first piece of that. But then they are in a place where they can help somebody else.
Absolutely.
And we're really encouraging them like, hey, you see someone new they've only have 1 day of sobriety. You go talk to them, like beeline to them and try to go help them because they have more than enough experience to be able to help someone. And that, as, excuse me, as addicts and alcoholics, we have to be useful. Like we need it in our lives. And we are uniquely qualified to be able to help the next person.
Yeah.
And it's just like the greatest gift of it all. And I would love to hear y'all's experience on that when you started to feel useful or have a sense of purpose. Tanner, I'll go to you. As far as like, do you remember, was there a time, like maybe a moment of clarity where you actually got to use your addiction for the good?
Absolutely. So one of the first guys I sponsored, obviously, you're going and helping. This guy's, you feel like his life depends on yours,
Right.
And in the beginning,
Yeah.
I'm going to fix this guy.
Yes.
You can't help but start out that way.
Yeah.
You're excited. But there was a lot of fear wrapped up in going and sponsoring this guy, and I went and started working with him, and we started and we really connected. We really connected with our stories. He was a drug addict. I was a drug addict. So we really got down on that level. The hustle of it and all that. And before I knew it, there was 3-4 months that went by, and this guy's starting to get a job. He had just got into sober living. Like he had just come in that day. So I mean, he was beat up.
Yeah.
Rough. And it's 3 months down the road, and like his life's starting to change. And I had this aha moment that, thank God that past 10, 11 years wasn't just for nothing.
Oh, yeah.
That it wasn't just, don't have to just look back at it and be like, what was that about?
Right.
I just wasted all them years for nothing.
Yeah.
No, I get to use that to help somebody else experience what I've experienced.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. What about you, Brian?
Yeah, so, excuse me, coming from just this place of feeling useless and having no purpose after years of living a drug-addicted life, just being relied upon and asked to go speak somewhere and speaking up and sharing in meetings, that gave me such a sense of fulfillment. And then obviously being asked to show another man how to live this way of life, and someone saying, "Man, I see something I want in you."
Yeah.
Man, that is such a powerful and profound moment. We truly are a miracle.
Yeah.
The fact that we are sitting here doing something like this. I mean, if you would have told me 4 years ago that I'd be sitting on a podcast talking about recovery, I would have thought you were absolutely bananas.
Yeah.
I mean, it is such a miracle that this way of life truly works, and to go from where I was to where I'm at, it truly is. It's a miracle, and to feel useful and have purpose, there's no explanation for it other than that. Man, this stuff really does work.
Right. Oh, yeah. And I love that so much because I was talking to someone the other day and they were like, I just don't know what my purpose is. I'm like, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know exactly what your purpose is.
I know. I know.
And sometimes you just want to shake them because you're like, you got to experience this. Like, it's like the best thing, It's got to be. It's got to be better than the drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why would we keep doing it?
Right.
Right. And it keeps getting better.
Yeah, it does.
I'd like to. You said you're talking about the importance of phase 2.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to that question, everything that we're sitting here talking about right now is stuff that's discussed
Right.
with phase 2
Yes.
that they just continue to hear over and over and over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
and just being immersed for a period of time in that narrative
Yeah.
is so important. It just is so important. It's just so important to continue to hear that stuff until you have your own experience with it, right? Because you've come out of treatment. You've been in treatment a short period of time, right? There's just still so many desires, compulsions, that to go do whatever I wanted, to go back to the way I was living.
Right.
That is just so ingrained and powerful inside of you. like, it's just important. It's important to be around this narrative and to continue to be, to just be immersed in this until you have your own experience with it.
It is, Tanner, because the other piece of it is the accountability piece, right? I put myself back when I got out of residential treatment. If I were to just return home, first of all, I had no foundation. I had no recovery foundation. I had no clue what it looked like to live a recovered life. Residential treatment gave me the answer, but it didn't give me a recovered way of life, right? Like I wasn't recovered. I just had some of the answers to the quiz, right? Like I didn't complete the final exam.
Right.
Right. And if I would have just gone and tried to plug and play right when I went, if say I returned home to Montgomery, Alabama, I have no idea where meetings are. I have no clue what it looks like. I would have had no schedule.
Yeah.
I'm not a disciplined person.
Right.
On my own, I'm not a disciplined person.
Right.
I would have never gone to meetings. I would have never shared in those meetings. I would have never gotten plugged up to a recovery community. I would not have been successful.
Yeah.
So it was critical for me to be around other men who were trying to live the same way of life that I now live, right? And I think that's what we're so good at doing over there is that we hold you to a standard that you're going to live this way of life so that when you go home, you can continue living this way of life.
Right.
And return to your other, like, normal way of living, your family, your job, your career, whatever it is that you do, and do recovery.
Yes. Yeah. And that, I'm so glad y'all brought that up because that is so important. I mean, even from my experience, like, it was not new information to me that, like, I needed to go help other people, but it was a struggle for me to be willing to put myself out there because it's scary, like I didn't think I was qualified to help someone or have enough time sobriety or whatever.
Yeah.
All the delusional stuff we tell each other, but the reality is, like, you got a few days sober, you got a little experience with some work, you're gonna be just fine helping somebody. But so I'm glad you brought that up because it's not impossible, obviously, out in the free world to do this. People do it often, but it's a lot easier to have a structured environment where there are coaches like y'all pushing the person to go do it. Like, it's not really, you don't have an option. Like, hey, you're going to go and you're going to feel a little uncomfortable. You're going to have these conversations. You're going to go up and talk to these people you don't know. Like, but you're going to be okay. And you're going to fall on your face. And we're gonna love you, and we're gonna show you how to do better next time.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. So I'm really glad y'all brought that up. So I guess Tanner, I'll go back to you. What made you want to stay and work for Impact?
Is that a loaded question?
I don't know.
So. It was an invitation.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't know that it's something that I wanted to do. It just happened.
Yeah.
I was placed there. I mean, I just was. I mean, I was out trying to find a job. I mean, I had went to work for one place, worked there for about 2 weeks. They called me in the office, said, we can't have you working here with that many pending felonies. So I had to go find another job. So I kept moving my feet, went to another job, got the same response. Finally landed a job where I was going to make some pretty good money. Really excited. Most money I'd ever make, especially starting, initially.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks before I was supposed to start, the same thing. That same thing. We can't let you work here with that many pending felonies. And then Chad calls me. He's like, hey, we need somebody to come up here and, take some ownership and take charge of this nighttime shift, really get it running. And he said, would you be interested in that? I said, I'd love to give that a try. And I slid right in and I found that it just happened naturally. It just come naturally to me. It's been one of the greatest opportunities of my life. I absolutely love it.
That's amazing. I love that. What about you, Ryan?
Why did I decide to stick around to work at Impact?
Yeah, I kind of forgot the question too.
Um,
What made you stay and work for Impact?
I was called here.
Yeah.
Um, I went to treatment for my first time in 2014 and thought I was better than everybody and didn't belong there. And, I always felt like I was apart from. But even there, once I found my people that were like me, I still found a way to disassociate from them. But somehow I wound up in an IOP program and thinking to myself, I'd like to work here one day. And so this calling had been on my heart to work in treatment since 2014 if I could ever get well. And so 7-8 years longer of suffering. And, I went to detox and I was in this hospital detox. It wasn't a very nice detox, but I remember thinking, if once I get well, it wouldn't be too bad to come back and work here.
Yeah.
And, my little plans and designs in comparison to what God had in store for me. So I got well and I did what was asked of me. And I remember just kind of planting seeds and ideas in my head of, man, I'd really like to work here one day. This would be really cool. And a spot opened up, and I think Adams maybe called me on the phone. I was working at Home Depot, just a little recovery job. I think I'd been sober for 6 months or so, just kind of sticking around. I wanted to be around Impact. I wanted to be around the people at Impact. These Impact had become my people.
Yeah.
The people at Impact. It's not the place, right? It's the people.
Yeah.
It's Tanner, it's Chad, it's Colby, it's Swartz. It's all of the people, right? It's you. Everyone at Impact makes Impact.
Yeah.
It's not the place.
Right.
And, Adam said, man, you want to put in your 2 weeks notice? I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. And so I was ready. And since then, I've been so excited to watch this place grow. And it's been by far the greatest honor of my life to work at this place. It is so special to me. This is the coolest job I've ever had. It's the job I've had for the longest in my life. I was thinking about it the other day that how cool is it? How awesome is it that I actually have a career? I mean, I never thought that was possible.
Yeah.
It never was for me until I got well.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. Okay, so just a couple closing thoughts. Ryan, what do you think has helped you most in your recovery?
So I had no understanding of what it meant to be a disciplined person. At one point in my life, I may have been a disciplined person. In order to be on a college basketball team, you have to have some sense of discipline, show up on time, be in the weight room, so on and so forth. At some point along the way, I lost that and became a very, very undisciplined person. And so I had to have some type of a power come in and show me how to be disciplined again. And it's through that power that I stay connected to that allows me to continue to live a successful life today. And I stay connected to that power daily, in the morning and at night. And that is the most important, most critical thing to my recovery, right? I stay connected to thing for me that this program has given me. I thought I knew how to pray and how to get quiet and talk to God. I had no clue what I was doing prior to coming into this program. And my connection with God today is the strongest thing that I have, and it's responsible for creating me into the person that I am today. I'd be lost without it. I'd be a very undisciplined, walking around lost person without it.
Yes. Yes, I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tanner, what about you? What? Well, I'll let you share what you want, but I'm curious to know what's helped you in your recovery, and also if there's anything that you think families need to know or you'd like to at least share.
Good sponsorship. Good sponsorship has helped me a lot. Having somebody in my life that has lived an entire one of my lives in sobriety. This whether it's while you're still using or it's once you're recovered, these paths just look so much alike. and having somebody that's already walked the path, that has been through what you're either going through or about to go through, and being able to call on that person and get some guidance around that has made the biggest difference in my life. And like Moody said, somebody that I can be just bone crushingly honest with. They know every single aspect of my life. It's just made a world of difference. One thing that I would say to families, it's a tough one. Be a tough one for the families. I love my mom dearly, but she about loved me to death, literally. She just did. It didn't matter if I couldn't pay my bills because of my drug habit, she would pay my bills. If I needed a $20 for just whatever, she would give me some money. If I couldn't pay my truck payment, she'd pay my truck payment. If I needed to get out of jail, she'd get me out of jail. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. When she stopped doing that, I got well.
Wow.
You love them and be supportive, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
But all of that other stuff that you think is helping is not helping. It's not helping any. One of these days, they will thank you for all of that.
Yeah.
They will. I couldn't see that for a while.
Right. I'm
see
sure.
that for a while.
And that's hard.
That's
hard. I can't imagine. My children are very young, but you love them so much that you want to help. And I say this often, but no family member gets a playbook on how to handle addiction. So that's one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast, is to help just give information to those that don't know what to do or where to navigate or how to do anything, But yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. It's tough, but clearly it helped you.
Absolutely. As long as I've got a way out, if I've got a second option, I'm going to take it.
Yeah, that's the key.
If I have got a little wiggle room, you can guarantee I'm going to use it.
Right.
That's when I got well, when I had no other option. That's the key.
Yeah. Well, anything else y'all want to add before we wrap up?
Thank you for the opportunity. I had a good time.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thank y'all.
It was. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, it was fun.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you for tuning into this episode of Impacting Recovery Uncensored. I hope today's conversation has inspired you, opened your mind, maybe even your heart, and given you a sense of hope. But remember, you're not alone. If you found this episode helpful, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to follow us on social so you never miss any information. But until next time, keep making an impact. Thanks, y'all.